The Callisto Protocol is a sci-fi survival horror game first developed in June of 2019 and was released on December 2nd of 2022. The game was developed by Striking Distance Studios, a company known for creating the majorly popular games Subnautica and Players Unknown Battlegrounds. They're also known for having the CEO being that of Glenn Schofield, the creator of Sledgehammer Games and the executive producer of Dead Space, and someone who gave creative input to Dead Space 2. So the fact that not only the company who was developing the game was already credible for their widely successful releases in the past, but the person at the helm for this team was already beloved for being part of two sci-fi horror games that have been known as masterpieces for over a decade at this point. So when the first trailer of the game was shown about a year ago, showing something of a prisoner being absolutely devoured by his infected cellmate, just about everybody was excited for this game and could not wait to get their hands on it. I mean, like a next-gen resemblance of Dead Space, who couldn't be excited to see all the disgustingly amazing looking enemies, the promised gruesome death scenes, and hell, the feeling of being just some regular Joe Schmo in an unknown environment taking on the unknown infected is just excitable all by itself. I swear, man, this game is going to rock. Shit. The Callisto Protocol is extremely mid storyline, mid characters, mid combat, mid environment. Actually, the overall look of the game is very nice, but everything else just feels there. There wasn't a moment where I was nutting over a cool feature that I saw or reveling over any of the plot twists in the game. The entire time I was playing the game, I just felt indifferent. But why is that? How was one of the most hyped games to come out in 2020 become, well, this? Well, why don't you all sit back, relax, and watch as I explain my exact thoughts with the Callisto Protocol, all while weird tentacles just straight up explode from my stomach. The year is 2320. There's been a massive outbreak on one of Jupiter's moons, Europa, which caused mass death to just about every single person who dared step foot onto the moon. You are Jacob Lee, a person who hasn't stepped foot on Europa. Instead, you are the captain of a cargo ship who has been making supposed medical runs between Europa and another moon on Jupiter called Callisto under the works of the United Jupiter Corporation. One fateful day, your ship gets boarded by the Outer Way, and due to an unsuccessful opening of an airlock on your ship, you crash down nearby the Supermax prison on Callisto, with everybody on the ship except for you and this woman dying. Here, you get picked up by the recovery team with a Captain Ferris at the helm. However, per Warden's orders, both you and the woman get sent to the facility as new inmates. Once getting a cell and that implanted on your neck, the outbreak that spread on Europa is now spreading in the prison. Your main objective throughout the game is just to get the fuck out of this hellhole, and you do so with the initial help with another prisoner named Elias, and tells you exactly what you need to do to get the fuck off the unescapable prison. However, shit will ultimately hit the fan with you being left with a dead Elias and the woman who brought down your ship, now named Danny Nakamura. Here, you are forced to help and gain the trust of Danny, and it's up to you to both figure out what started the outbreak and how the hell to get off the Black Iron prison. The story is extremely basic. Get from point A to point B, and along the way figure out what happened and why the plot twist villain did his plot twist. Nothing too special, you've probably seen it in other games before. The one that I can think of the top of my head would be something like BioShock. The story is nothing too special. However, I think it's the characters that the Callisto Protocol really dropped the ball with. From what I can tell, there are only two dynamic characters within the Callisto Protocol, that being Jacob Lee and Danny Nakamura. The main protagonist, Jacob, at first leads the audience to believe that he is nothing more than a simple cargo ship captain who does nothing more than transport cargo. However, throughout the game, it's hinted and eventually shown that Jacob is carrying more malicious items that led to the destruction of Europa. Jacob is a suspicious person. As the player is fighting through Black Iron with Jacob, you both need to figure out why you're here and how to get out of here. But you yourself have the lingering question of why did this woman attack Jacob and is refusing to team up with him and Elias to escape. I like the fact that Jacob acts as this more anti-hero rather than a traditional protagonist. He puts his self-interest above everyone else by selling out his morals to transport a deadly virus for some good money, and also by jumping towards escape rather than uncovering the truth within the prison's outbreak. But with his character arc towards the end of this game, with his data sync into Danny's perspective of Europa, and with the traumatizing death of his first officer Max, Jacob will go through a realistic change of character and attempt to make this the last outbreak to ever occur with this virus. And then you have Danny, who may or may not secretly be Kimiko from The Boys, who works off well with Jacob. At first, you and Jacob are led to believe that Danny is the simple bandit who wants to steal cargo from your ship, and when taking down your ship, you realize her hatred towards you is a lot more personal, so throughout the midpoint of the game, she gets treated more as the primary antagonist, with her abandoning you. twice. However, towards the end of the game, you get to understand why she boarded your ship in the first place and the amount of loss she had to go through to end up at the Black Iron Prison. She's a great round character, and with the two on screen, you get to see amazing chemistry with them as they try to put their differences aside so they can live to see another day. Now let's talk about the other characters. They suck donkey balls. Actually, no, they don't suck in the sense that I hate to see them on the screen. It's actually quite the opposite. But all the other secondary characters are just extremely underutilized throughout the entire game. Let's take a look at Max, for example. He's shown as more the voice of reason in the cargo ship before dying in the most gruesome fashion to ever exist. And for him to die early on, that's okay. After his death, Max gets treated as the wake-up call in Jacob's hallucinations in 2 scenes alone. That's right, after Max's death, he gets shown up twice as the morality checker for Jacob, and that's at the very beginning of the outbreak and also at the end of the game. Couldn't he have acted like, I don't know, like the Joker from Arkham City? Like he's not a real person and only a figment of Jacob's insanity, which pushes more of an isolated feeling onto the protagonist, but also can act as the moral judge throughout any time that Jacob makes a questionable decision throughout his survival. Take a look at Elias as well. He's the prisoner who helps you escape from the prison, and he's far more on screen than Max will ever be. You also hear him through the cons link as you play, but he's still another character who I just do not give a shit about because I don't know anything about him. The only time that he tells you of any significance about his character is when Jacob and him are preparing to leave the airlock, but we all know that he dies right afterwards with Captain Ferris. Great, is this now AMC's The Walking Dead? Are we now just gonna dump all this info on a character seconds before they die so we're able to finally care about them? What the fuck is this? Danny herself made such a great point after extracting his chip from his neck, which was, why should you care about me extracting it like that? You don't know the guy after all. Why should we care about this prisoner if we don't know anything about him? You also have this doctor. She had like 4 lines when you were taken into the prison, and then is treated like the saving grace by saving Danny for giving her a treatment to the infection that somehow just fucking exists now, and also for saving Jacob mere seconds before the self-destruct sequence at the very last part of the game. I don't care about her. She's given me no reason to care about her. In fact, I don't know her name until I started writing the script for this video. But anyways, thank you for having, I think 12 lines in this game. You're a really impactful character. You also have Captain Ferris as the secondary antagonist, who just fucking sucks. His motive for hating you is so forced, and his only characteristic throughout the game is that he's the big strong guy who hates you. And when he gets infected and turns into the next alpha test subject as his vessel was able to make the infection evolve his body, wasn't anything great. His final fight at the end of the game perfectly encapsulated how much I don't care about him, as he was the easiest fight I've had in the game. You lastly have Warden Cole. He's the plot twist villain, and a very expectable one at that. I mean, the guy who pushes change and being a part of the greater good in pre-recorded messages while not being shown for at least half of the game. In the same game that also did not establish any primary antagonist. His plot twist was the most predictable shit I have ever seen in my life. His reasoning for doing this, as well as the most cliche thing ever: let's ruin a part of humanity so humanity can somehow become even greater. Never seen that before. Alright, so it's no secret at all that the Callisto Protocol's most controversial feature has to do with the combat. Either you have people say that the combat feels extremely smooth, or you have people say that the enemies feel spongy with controls that don't work well in highly populated situations. However, I am here to say, the combat in the game does exist. Most of the combat early on relies on melee with your crowbar. Your stun baton that does exactly the same damage and same attack speed as your crowbar. Okay. You attack by pressing attack button, can dodge left or right by moving either left or right, go figure, and if you're attacking 1 or 2 standard infected, you're gonna have no problems at all, and you're gonna end up enjoying the game at the beginning. The more you play the game, you will end up finding a weapon base to attach with a revolver, shotgun, and other one-handed weapons, which actually really sucks. Do you know how many times I've tried to switch my weapon base but instead would eat absolute shit because the time to switch weapon bases take longer than an 80-year-old taking a piss at night? Too many fucking times. You'll also obtain standalone weapons like the assault rifle and riot shotgun, which doesn't take the same ammo as the one-handed skunk shotgun that you attach to your weapon base, so have fun shooting 2 million shotgun shells at the infected. And lastly, you'll be able to obtain the gravity gun. You'll also be able to upgrade your weapons through posts with credits that you gather from either looting enemy corpses or by selling valuable items. That's actually cool. You actually have to pick and choose what upgrade you want, like do you want explosive magnum ammo or extra stun baton damage, damage, but it actually really doesn't matter as the combat just feels boring and repetitive. As soon as you get this gravity gun, the game becomes just a pattern. If there are 1 or 2 basic infected, you can easily hit the enemy once or twice, dodge them, get a combo shot, and then rinse and repeat. If there are 3 or more infected, use the gravity gun to throw one into the group, or just throw them into a trap that one hits them, and then do the repeated combo to finish off the stragglers. And if you have the battery pack, oh my god, there's nothing stopping you from taking down the infected that populates half of New York goddamn city. There's one segment where you have to survive an onslaught of infected on an excavator towards the colony near the end of the game, and it is the easiest ambush ever because of the gravity gun that lets me throw away every single infected off the platform in 0.3 milliseconds. I swear I didn't have to fire a single bullet until coming across the 2-headed infected. Oh yeah, let me discuss the infected types. You have your normal variants. They are the most common of the bunch, resembles a guard, employee, or prisoner, and is, well, a standard enemy. You then have the long-range one, which is like the standard infected, but can now shoot. Are you guys following me so far? This enemy isn't bad. It forces you to close the gap between you and the infected, so they're alright. You also have the spider infected that runs away from you every fucking time you get near it and is the most annoying enemy to take on. Like, what the fuck, spider? You have the crawling infected that explode nearby, just like every single special infected in every single zombie game whatsoever. You have this little larvae which die at one hit and can barely do enough damage, but hey, they're better than this enemy, the security robot, who, by the way, will kill you in one shot if they shoot you and can only be killed by shots to the head. That's not the bad part. The bad part is that they're utilized 3 times. One of the time you just have to hide from it in the beginning of the game, with the other 2 not being hard at all since it's just a 1v1. It would have been so cool to see them attack the infected, but whatever. You have the mutated infected that mutates after receiving enough damage, which is scary at first because these Squidward ass tentacle motherfuckers will mow you down in a heartbeat. That is, if you cannot aim your guns for some reason and can't hit a target that's on their body before they're mutated. I mean, I guess they were a pain in the ass when you had low ammo and very low inventory space at the beginning of the game, but this problem goes away as soon as you get the riot shotgun, your second standalone weapon, and you get that shotgun when you get your new suit, which increases your inventory, which increases the amount of ammo you can hold at once. And as the boss type infected that only spawns in a few times, but more than the robot, you have the double-headed infected. He's cool. He will hit you in one hit no matter what health you're at, so there is a huge risk when attacking it. You also have to create space at all times to make sure that he rips his head off and not yours, so you can finish the job. And finally, you have the blinded infected. They aren't good. These blinding creatures depend on hearing so that they can catch your prey. I mean, go figure, they are fucking blind. But for some reason though, like a good 4 times out of 10, these infected will randomly attack you no matter if you're just standing there with your thumb up your ass. They're also included in the infamous area where you have to traverse through a good dozen of them at once. This is primarily where the people were having troubles with the combat in the game, saying that the dodging is useless and the tank-like enemies will end you in a heartbeat. And you know, that is true. If you take them head on, you're not going to survive this encounter. But here's the solution. The fucking gravity gun. How the fuck is it that you're able to pick up the infected and throw them at enough speed into a spike trap to kill them, but also be quieter than you just standing still? I don't fucking know, but so long as you keep a battery pack on you or 2 of them, you're gonna do absolutely fine, which makes the entire combat and the tensefulness behind any of it be completely shattered and become incredibly boring. So in the conclusion, the combat may be boring, may be a little complicated with the dodging, and may be incredibly repeated over and over again, but everything would be so much better without this literal god tier of a weapon. Let's also talk about the final boss in the game. It's really bad. Like, I had more challenge and subsequently more fun taking on the 2-headed enemy rather than the final boss. The final boss you were supposed to take on, by the way, is Captain Ferris. Throughout the game, he gets infected with the virus, but instead of turning into whatever the fuck those things are, his body instead accepts the mutation. He becomes the newest alpha test subject for Warden Cole's evolutionary progress, and he becomes your last fight of the game. He has 2 stages in his fight, one being his normal infected self, and the other fully mutating for no reason other than the plot told him to. The first stage is really easy. You could probably beat this stage within 2 minutes, as all you have to do is dodge him and then strike him. His mutated form isn't much harder either. He shields off his head that can be broken after a few shots, where you attack his exposed head and rinse and repeat 3 times. All while the crawling explosive enemies come at you, which, 1, they're unironically harder than the boss fight simply because if you don't pay attention to them, they will blindside you and kill you, and 2, they can easily take down Alpha after using this goddamn gravity gun. This is the most anticlimactic boss fight that I've ever encountered. I really thought there would be a 3rd stage when I saw the cutscene, but instead it was just him dying, I guess. To build up an already weak character throughout the game, only to fight him twice. Well, you get to fight him in the previous chapter, by the way, but he's just in his stage 1 form. And for him to fall over like a sack of fucking potatoes is just pathetic. He won't be challenging, he won't kill you over and over again, let alone even once if you're just decent at the game. He is just there. I just don't know. The combat in this game could have been so much better, maybe could have delved deeper into the melee, maybe could have had more interesting enemies that you take on, but it's just subpar at best. The scenery in the game is hands down the best part of the game. In the game, there are 8 chapters, that being Cargo, Outbreak, Aftermath, Lost, Below, Colony, and Tower. All these chapters help divide up the story like any normal chapter would do in any form of media, but offers differing environments with each chapter. In the beginning of Outbreak, you get to see the entire prison rioting and losing control, with fire blazing everywhere, prisoners running for their lives, and infecting chowing down on the prisoners who could not run fast enough. You'll then have another moment where you're down in solitary confinement, where it's mostly empty from enemies, but you're able to see the absolute torture these men were put through when they were stuck down in solitary confinement. You'll also be able to listen to the voices talk within your head either quietly or exactly like somebody calling out to you, which adds a layer of like insanity towards the game. In the Lost chapter, you'll be outside for most of the segment, where you'll be barely able to see 5 feet in front of you with a blizzard storm raging about, with you only being able to see the frozen corpses of fellow prisoners and or infected. Or maybe look at the botanical garden that holds many of spiders that are ready to pounce at you like you were an American during the Vietnam War. All of these locations are incredibly unique, but pair that with the colder, more dreadful color scheme and then non-existent music but more ambient sounds from Finishing Move Incorporated, and you have just amazing scenery. Striking Distance Studios wanted you to feel isolated but feeling watched at all times, and I feel like they did a really good job in doing so. All in all, this game was just disappointing. It's not necessarily a bad game. I wasn't begging Steam so that my money gets refunded after playing this, but I don't think I'll be returning to this game anytime soon. I don't know if the hype surrounding the Callisto Protocol caused my expectations for the game to skyrocket at an unbelievable mark, or if this game was just incredibly mid, but I don't see myself coming back. I know that there'll be direct sequels and maybe some DLC for the game now that we know Jacob is in the process of surviving the self-destruct sequence, or the now escaped Danny may be hunting down Ward and Cole after he made his escape, and maybe then Striking Distance Studios will fix the mistakes they've made with this game. I mean, they listened well enough with the day 1 performance issues, so I do have my hopes up. What did you guys think of the game? Did you guys like it, hate it? Leave it down in the comments below. But with that said, I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked this video, maybe hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all in a later video. Peace.